What's happening, everybody? Off the Mike Sports Network here, talking some college football because it seems like the regular occurrence this season is that a coach is getting fired pretty much every week. Now, this coach that I'm going to talk about here, I don't think they're going to get fired now, but their seat is scalding, and I mean scalding hot, and that is Brian Kelly at LSU. Remember, this guy left for LSU. He left for LSU ahead of the 2022 season, that wild coaching cycle where Ed Orgeron gets fired. He leaves Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman ends up taking over at Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman ended up taking Notre Dame to the national championship against Ohio State last year. And Brian Kelly hasn't been in the playoffs since he got to LSU, and he's not going this year because this was maybe one of the most eye-opening results, because let's remember, back at the start of the season, this team couldn't win a first game of the season to save their life. They beat Clemson, who was ranked number 4 to start the season, 17-10. That was their first season opening win under Brian Kelly. That feels like a lifetime ago because Clemson is not good, and they're well out of the picture. And now you look at LSU, they have now lost 3 of their last 4 games in SEC play. They only beat Florida, and Florida has now fired their coach. And then they beat South Carolina, who's having a really disappointing season. They lost to Vanderbilt on the road last week, and then they lost at Ole Miss back on the 27th of September. And Ole Miss looks pretty good. They got a big win for Lane Kiffin in Norman at Oklahoma this week. But on Saturday night, the marquee game really, game day wasn't there, but, Chris Fowler and Kirk Herbstreit were on this game. Texas A&M going to Death Valley to take on LSU. And this game was not close. Texas A&M, granted, they are number 3 in the country, and they are really good. And I think Texas A&M could win the whole thing. Mike Elko is a hell of a coach. And they went to Notre Dame and won that game, granted, because it was a botched extra point. But still, Texas A&M is really good. And Texas A&M went on the road to Death Valley and destroyed. And I mean destroyed. And if not for a late touchdown, this would have been a lot worse. 49-25. 49-25. Texas A&M goes to 8-0. LSU is 2-3 in league. They've lost 3 of their last 4 games. And you had fans of 100,000 people in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, chanting, "Fire Kelly, fire Kelly." This was a weird fit from the beginning because Brian Kelly is kind of a Northeast guy. And, he had the fake Southern accent when he walked into LSU. I mean, let's not forget, this guy had Jaden Daniels at the height of his Heisman season. He still hasn't been able to get to the playoff. They expanded last year. They couldn't get to the playoff. They're not going to get there this year because now, hey, they're 5-3, 2-3 in league, and they still got to go to Alabama next week. They have to go to, not next week, they've got to go to Alabama in 2 weeks off of a bye. Good luck with that. You've got Alabama, Arkansas, who, we'll see how that goes. Bobby Petrino trying to get a job. Western Kentucky, they'll be fine. And then they're at Oklahoma to end the season. They're not going to the playoff. That's the first thing. But I think Brian Kelly is firmly on the hot seat. Now, and to be honest with you, in a wild coaching cycle, I wonder if one of 2 things is going to happen here. Number one, is Brian Kelly going to want to leave? Because I just don't think that this is working. And 2, is LSU going to want to move on? Because there's a $50 million buyout. I think I'll have to double check the numbers. It's going to be really hard to move off of him. And especially in a really competitive market, go and try and find a better coach. Brian Kelly's a good coach. This is just not a fit. And I don't know if you're going to get anybody better. That's the problem here. That being said, LSU's in a really bad spot because this wasn't a fit to begin with. He is a good coach. He's done a lot of great things. He did it at Cincinnati, Grand Valley State. He did it at Notre Dame. But him moving from Notre Dame to LSU just always felt weird to me. And now here we are in a prime spot, and this is as eye-opening of a result as you're going to see, where it just as eye-opening of a result as you're going to see. 49-25. You lose by almost 4 scores. You actually lose by 4 scores. Well, 3 because you can get 3 2-point conversions. 24-point loss at home to Texas A&M. Texas A&M is a great story and a great team. You shouldn't be giving up nearly 50 points and losing by 24 points at home like that in a night game. Like it's just not something that should happen. And then you look at the numbers and just how much they get per Texas A&M 7 to 10 on third down, 426 yards. They ran for 224. Like they are getting pushed around. Outgained 426 to 278. Time of possession was relatively even. I mean, hell, Texas A&M lost the turnover battle and they still beat them by 3 scores. This was not competitive. So to me, what this tells me is there's going to be a divorce here. Whether it's LSU moving off of it or Brian Kelly wants to get out of here, Brian Kelly, in my eyes, will not be the head coach of the LSU Tigers going into next season. Now, how LSU goes about this is going to be fascinating to me because that is a really good job because you have just about as much resources as anybody. But it's really disappointing to see how this has turned out. It was a weird fit, but considering how good of a coach Brian Kelly is and what we've seen from him, I know he rubs a lot of people the wrong way. Like, it wasn't a fit. And I think it's time, if you are the decision makers at LSU, to really make to decide, hey, you've got enough money. Like, for God's sake, freaking Penn State's paying $50 million to fire James Franklin before the midway point of the season. So, do I think that they would fire Brian Kelly right now in a bye week? Maybe. That would be insane. But that being said, we've already seen a bunch of insane things happen. So, I don't know, man. I really don't know how this is going to be resolved. But I can say, I know that this is going to end with an exit. But if you put a gun to my head and said, hey, do they fire him before Alabama? I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think it's going to happen. But we've already seen James Franklin, a top-level coach, who was number 2 in the country to start the season. He got fired 2 weeks ago. Billy Napier got fired, but he was Brian Kelly, especially after how the season started. If you would have told me now that they would have lost by 24 points at home to Texas A&M and would have lost 3 of their last 4 games, and now they have a bye before their rival Alabama, who's rolling, by the way, I would not be surprised if they fired him. It would certainly be something, especially with all of these high-profile jobs being opened up. But this ain't working. This is not working for LSU. This is not working for Brian Kelly. Does Brian Kelly want to get out? Does LSU want to spend all that money? Because we've already seen, hey, Mike Norvell at Florida State, they could very easily fire them if he wanted, but they don't want to do it right now. Luke Fickell at Wisconsin, they don't want to do it right now because there's too much money that they need to pay off to, fire these guys with their buyouts that are listed in these contracts. Brian Kelly's got a huge one. That's one of the main hiccups. But we've already seen earlier in this season that isn't that big of a hiccup with all of these athletic departments and, these boosters having inordinate sums of money. And LSU has got a ton of money. They could go ahead and do whatever the fuck they want. But this is one of the more eye-opening results of the season because everybody knew that it was not going well in Baton Rouge. This is a really disappointing team here with LSU. And now they're not going to go to the playoff again for the 4th year under Brian Kelly. But to get clobbered by A&M like this in the manner that they did is really alarming. So I think there is going to be a divorce here. I just don't know when. It could happen in this bye week, but by the end of the season, LSU will be looking for a new coach. I don't know if it's going to be on Brian Kelly's accord or if it's just going to be LSU saying, fuck off, we're going to go figure it out ourselves. Because we've already got, Arkansas is open, Florida's open. Like, this is going to be a wild coaching carousel. And who's to say that Ole Miss may be open because, hey, Lane Kiffin may want that job. But it's certainly getting interesting in the SEC. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye.